Hi, and welcome to the CareTruth. I'm Marlena, and I'm so excited today that we are going to have Richard, one of the co-founders of the NARRA Story, to talk to us about what stories are you saving for someday and how can you make it not be someday anymore. We want to make sure that whether you're a caregiver, a daughter, a grandchild, or just a family friend, when you know someone who has some amazing stories, that you have a way to help them share it and be really professional about it without it costing a ridiculous amount. So, welcome, Richard, and the NAR story. Hi, and welcome to the Care Truth. I'm Marlena, and I'm so excited to have Richard here to talk a little bit about the NARA story. So, Richard, please tell me a little bit about how you got started with NARA.
Okay, so thanks for having me. Thanks very
Of
much. I'm
course.
excited to be here. Calling in from New Jersey. How did I get started with NARA? So I've ever since I was young, I was a storyteller. I just love stories. I love reading. I love the movies, and in my mind, I was always making up stories. So I was always into creative writing. And I studied writing in college, and I have two master's degrees. So when I was getting my second master's degree, it was an MFA with a concentration in fiction. Meanwhile, before that, I had been doing like professional writing and communications for some different corporations in IT, writing like stories about what everyone was doing, but my soul wasn't really into it. So during my master's program, I was asking myself, what am I going to do after this? I have to figure out a way to make a living doing something I love doing. And it was at that time that my grandfather asked me if I would write his memoir. I grew up listening to my grandfather's stories. He was in World War II. He flew fighter planes over in the Pacific, and he used to tell me these stories of action, bailing out of planes that got hit. He was the pilot, and there was one story in particular where the flak was shot up, an explosive was shot up into the air and it exploded and hit his plane and destroyed his plane, and he had to bail out. And he had these scars in his legs that so among my earliest memories were like looking at these scars in his legs and sort of running my fingers over them. So I grew up listening to these stories, and when he asked me to write his memoir, I was like, "Yeah, Grandpa, that sounds like a fantastic thing to do." So I interviewed him, and then I edited his words. I put in pictures. I made a cover. I made his book, printed 50 copies, gave them out to the whole family, and everyone thought it was great. And it
Yeah.
was like, boom, the birth of my business. And so, for anyone who's watching rather than listening, this is the first memoir that I did. This is my grandpa. And then right after that, I connected with my wife's great uncle, who was also in World War II. He fought under Patton, and I interviewed him. And it was just these experiences were incredible. So I did that for about 10 years. I've done more than 60 memoirs. But then now I'm doing NARA, which uses AI. So we're in the age of technology, and I partnered with Mia. She's my CEO of our company, and she's the tech person. And so we're incorporating AI and into making it very easy and accessible for people to capture and preserve and share their stories.
That's amazing. I love that. And thank you to your grandpa and your other relatives that served. Our country couldn't be what it is now without those really brave men and women. So I
Amen.
totally appreciate that. And I love
Yeah.
that capturing their story means that their legacy gets to live on in a way that it couldn't without that. So tell me a little bit about, why you think so many people don't capture the stories, why so many incredible moments get lost.
Well, two reasons come to my mind immediately. The main reason is that it's just not easy to do. I think a lot of people have the idea at some point, like I think more than half of us out there have been like, wow, like that story that I lived is really interesting. And at least to me and maybe to my family, it's fascinating, and I would love to tell it. And maybe it could even make a movie or a book. It's interesting. We've all had interesting things that perhaps could be movies or books. At least to us, they give us that feeling that there was something special there, something we shared with other people, something that we don't want it to disappear. And I think a lot of people have that thought, but it's not easy to write your story. You have to writing, even for people who are really good at writing is just hard,
Yeah, it takes a
and
lot of time.
it takes time, it takes energy, it takes kind of a skill set, but mostly it takes it takes the time, and you just run into kind of to writerly problems. But mostly the key is not to give up. You have to stick with it. So a lot of people that I've talked to, they've sat down and started to write their own stories, but it just kind of trailed off. People, it just trails off. It's really laborious. And then there's just the question of making it, good and something that is entertaining and people want to read. So there's that whole skill set there. So I think that's the main reason that people don't do it. The second reason is, I come across people who think like, why would anyone care about my story?
Hmm.
To me, everyone has a story that is unique and worthy. Even people where there's no action, even a story that's
Right.
not gonna like it wouldn't make a movie, but for your family to know what your life was like when you were a little boy or a little girl and what your parents and grandparents were like and whatever stories you know about them, if you have a great grandchild and you can tell your great grandchild about your great grandparents, to me, I mean, that's something.
Yeah, and words of wisdom too. There's so many little things that they did during the Great Depression or they did, during the Roaring 20s that are getting lost because not enough people have talked about it. Little catchphrases and little ideas on how they were able to help their families thrive are getting lost. And I think it's fantastic that NARRA is around. So tell me, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How does it work? If someone wants to capture all their stories through NARA, how do they do that? What does it look like?
Okay. So, well, the first thing you would do is you would make a profile. It takes, you would sign up. It takes less than a minute, and at this time there's no charge for it. So you just go to the website, which is NARRA Story. That's NARRA story.com. You make your profile. It knows who you are by your phone number. So you put in your phone number, you call from that phone. Actually, you go on the website and into your profile, you sign in, and there's a button. It says Call NARRA. So you just click Call NARRA, and then it
Hmm.
calls NARRA. NARA answers, it interviews you. So it's an AI powered interviewer that behaves based on these instructions that I gave it. The whole idea is that it interviews you the way that I would interview you, or the way that I've interviewed my previous clients over the last however many years. And, we're always improving it. It's getting closer and closer, but it's very human-like and it's dynamic. So it's not just like Q&A. It's not just preset questions. It responds to what you tell it. And the idea is that through this human-like, warm interviewer, this back and forth, it is pulling from you your stories in rich detail and and eliciting from you the kinds of details that make for good reading. So, such as sensory details. And, for instance, like if you talk about getting your first car, and you're 17 and whatever, it's the 1940s and you're getting your first car. Well, it's going to ask you what I would ask you, which is what was the make and model and color and what can you tell me about
Right.
it? You know, Someone just the other day, I was just reviewing a story in NARA and she was talking about her father shared a car with her uncle. They lived in Patterson and they would commute an hour to Rutgers Law School. And it was a jalopy and it didn't have a roof on it. It was cheap. And they covered it with a tarp.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have a conversation with the interviewer. It could be anywhere from 1 minute to 20 minutes. You hang up, it writes the story for you in less than a minute. And now this is a separate set of instructions that I gave it. So it handles your words, your interview, the way that I would do it and have done it in the past, which is, at first it's just a transcript, it's just an interview. It's full of all this great stuff you said, but it reads like a transcript, not like the kind of thing you would necessarily want to read. And so it rewrites it into something that reads well. It's totally grammatically correct. It captures your voice. It has all the details you said. It removes all the ums and ahs and interruptions that, maybe just shouldn't be there or don't make sense. And then your story appears on your page. So it's there. So then every time you call, you get a new story. And then you can create a book. And within the book, you can create chapters. And then you can move the stories into the right chapters.
So, what if a family has pictures that they want to incorporate? Is that something that can be done?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can upload media, you can upload pictures, you can also upload videos. So it's not just, I mean, an important part is that it leads to like a keepsake that you can print. You can make a printed book. On our roadmap, not at the time, but you'll be able to also make videos. It'll string together the videos that you put in. But when you print your book, it has QR codes. So you can hold your phone over the QR code and watch the video. So it's kind of like a
Oh,
printed
I
book that comes with the
love
video.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fantastic. What a great idea. So, can this work for even people who like have dementia or other cognitive issues?
It can. It can. And I've had amazing experiences. So when Mia and I did a workshop at out in Minneapolis, now I'm blanking out, of course.
That's okay.
Tower Tower Light.
Tower light. Yep.
Tower Light. We did a workshop there and we worked with Mary, who was in memory care. She had, you know, memory issues. She had, has dementia and she has a bit of a speech impediment, a little bit of a stutter, but she was very interested in what we were doing and has an amazing story. Like she had been a model and she had also been a secretary where she interacted a little bit with like JFK and Frank Sinatra. So she I helped her speak to the interviewer rather than just let her interact with the interviewer. Like, she needed some help, but she got on a roll and was telling her story. And because of her speech impediment, I understood maybe 70% of what she was saying, but Nara understood everything. And it wrote her story. And her aide was
Wow.
there with her, her aide who knows her, and she verified like it was all true. It was what she said. And there you have it. So, with
I
someone with
love
cognitive
that.
impairment, they're going to need a little bit of help, whether it's their caregiver or a family member sitting with them and doing it, as opposed to them doing it on their own. But yes, I mean it works.
So how do the caregivers or the adult children, how do they help with prompting or, how would they help with that?
They would sit with their loved one or their patient and help them kind of in the way like in many of the memoirs that I did when I was interviewing people, one on one, the storyteller might have, if they were had cognitive impairment, they might have a loved one with them, and their loved one, usually, their daughter or son, would help them remember. Hey, mom, remember? Don't you remember when, the story about, whatever, grandpa and the
Right.
spaghetti? And oh, yes, yes, yes. So help prompt because, obviously the program NARRA is not going to know these details. It's going to prompt you with questions, but not with super specific questions because it doesn't know the person, that specifically. But if you're there, you can help so and so remember, certain stories and help prompt them. You could even turn the
Perfect.
volume down. You could turn the volume down so that you don't hear the actual interviewer. You could sit there and interview your client, your patient, or your loved one on yourself, and the program's going to hear everything and turn it into a story. And it also
I
knows
love
that
that.
if it's interview style and it's hearing like someone else ask questions and answers, it's still going to edit it the same way that it how it should read, as though it's one person telling their story.
Oh, fantastic. Wonderful. So tell me, and you mentioned a little bit about Mary and her stories, but has there been any that have really surprised you that when you looked through the stories, you're like, holy cow, that's amazing?
Yeah. Well, the one that always comes to mind right away is I did an anthology of Holocaust stories.
Hmm.
There's a place here in New Jersey that is kosher and it's like a Jewish themed kind of place, and so it has a lot of Holocaust survivors come through. I did this now. It's been, I don't know, 7, 8 years probably, but the stories, they're all incredible. So one of them, we titled it The Prophecy because it's Miriam and Irving. Irving grew up in Brooklyn. He was Orthodox. He could speak Yiddish, and he enlisted in the army for World War II.
Wow.
Miriam was a Holocaust survivor. She was from Czechoslovakia, right near the border of Romania in the Carpathian Mountains. She grew up on a farm. They were poor. She was eventually in a concentration camp and she survived. And he showed up on Liberation Day. But the story is that his bar mitzvah portion, like his Torah portion, said, "You will go to a foreign land and you will meet a woman without any hair, and you will take her home."
Whoa.
And he met
That
Miriam,
gives
and
me
and
chills.
and her hair had been shaved. Everyone's hair had been cut off, and they fell in love, and he brought her home.
Oh, I love that. That's so wonderful. And how great for people, it's easy for those stories to get lost and forget how impactful those little moments were. I mean, obviously, the Holocaust was a horrific awful event that we never want repeated. But there were some good things that came from it as well. And, to capture that true spirit of surviving and thriving even in the worst conditions. I mean, what a gift to give future generations. So thank you so much for contributing that. I know that storytelling, my dad, I talked to you a little bit about having him get an account, and I'm excited to hear the stories that he has. He's always been a storyteller. Tell me a little bit, does Nara kind of capture that voice and kind of the flavor of their talk, or is everyone's story kind of sound the same?
Well, it's interesting because when I started doing this in the beginning, I was interviewing, Holocaust survivors, but and other people from other countries who didn't speak English as as a first language, and they have an accent. And sometimes their sentence structure would be different. It would be off. It would be just not first language. And so my idea was that I really wanted to capture their voice, so I kind of left that structure the way it was, so that when you read it, it was pretty obvious that this person doesn't speak English as a first language. But I came to realize that's not what they want. It's better just to make it grammatically correct and to lift them up. So if someone says I did something good when it should be I did something well, I'm going to change it to well because they're going to like that and it lifts them up a little bit. It makes them something that they're proud to share. And I realize that it doesn't take away from their voice because really I think their voice is more, I mean, there are, certain, phrases that people use if you're like a New Yorker, let's say, or wherever you're from. But really, your story is like what you did and what you think about it, and it's not the order of the words. And all of that is reflected in the stories that are written. But it's cleaned up, so it's always going to read like you speak English as a first language, or just read to lift you up in some way that you're proud of it. But yeah, it reflects everything that you told it,
I
and
love
and
that.
that's who you are.
Oh, wonderful. So if families don't know how to start, does Nara help them?
It does. It does. It narrow every time you call, it'll say, do you have a story in mind? Would you like to pick up where you left off, or would you like me to suggest a story for you? And in so NARRA has a some documents in its database that I can refer to, and one of them is this interview guide, this writing guide, and it's full
Hmm.
of like all the questions that I've asked, and it basically breaks a life down into chapters, and it helps you start to conceive of your life as like a chapter book. And so those chapters are, your family origins, your grandparents, your parents when they were young, your early childhood, adolescence, and education, all the way up, military, not every chapter is relevant to every person, but all the questions are there. So if you tell Nara, I want to tell some childhood stories, Nara will go to that chapter and ask those questions.
Fabulous. I love that. I can see where this would really build into something so meaningful for so many families and hearing stories that maybe they don't even know themselves because they never asked the right question of mom or dad. So, what would you say to families thinking, oh, it's too late or we don't have all the stories? What would you say to them?
I hear that often. Not often. I hear it, and I'm always thinking to myself like, "Oh man, I don't like hearing that." Because it's, now's the time. It's never too
Right.
soon, but it's also never too late. I mean, some people will say often that they'll say, "Oh, I wish I had met you before my mother or my father passed away or my grandparents." And then I say, the best chance that their stories have is now because you know some of their stories. You're not going to be able to tell them in as good as detail, precise detail as they would tell it. And you might pass it on to your children, and then the detail with which your children can tell it is that much less because over time it just sort of, the sands of
Yeah,
time kind of wear away at the details. I would say, if your parents passed away, you should share everything that you can while you can.
I love that
And
too.
and if you have an elderly loved one whose memory is really not very good, you should try and capture what you can while you can.
Capture as much as you can. I love
Yeah.
this. I so love this, and I'm really looking forward to it. What would you say to families that maybe have a big family and several siblings want to contribute to mom's story? How would that work?
I'm glad you asked that because there's this whole feature that we're super excited about that's in NARRA and it's live now, and it's this collaboration feature. So when you create a book, like say you want to do Dad's story, Dad has his profile. Dad is going to call in, he's going to start telling stories. But what you can do is you can create a book and call it, Dad's life stories. And then all the stories he tells, you put into the book. And then you go into the book and there's a collaboration section, and you go into that and you can invite collaborators. So let's say you have siblings that you want to invite, or and cousins, or whoever. You put in their phone number and you invite them, and they receive a message, and they can join the book, and
Oh,
then they can tell
fun.
stories. Yeah, and all
I
those stories
think
go into
this
the
is
book.
so great. So after they work with NARA and they have a book that they'd like to produce, what happens next? What are the next steps?
So there's the steps that we're working towards on the roadmap, and then there's like the current, sort of interim solution. Where what it's going to be is you'll be able to create your book cover. Well, first of all, so when you have a book in NARA and it's full of stories, you can click on generate PDF. So you can instantly make it into a PDF, which has certain formatting, and it's formatted the way that I format, my memoirs formatted nicely. It's got your copyright page, your table of contents, your title page, your page numbers, your headers and footers, and all your stories are there. And that's what the interior of the book looks like. Soon you'll be able to create a book cover. We used to have that functionality. We removed it, and then we're sort of upgrading it, and we're going to put it back. It'll be there soon. You'll be able to create a title for your cover, put in the author, upload the picture you want for the cover, upload your author picture, and then that'll go on the back cover, and then the AI will write a synopsis for the back cover, based on all the material that's in there, which you can edit. So you'll have your cover, and then you can order your book, and you can preview it, you can look at it before you actually order it, you can make changes, then generate another preview, and then will be connected with the printer, and you can order it and it'll be printed and shipped to you. Currently, that's not all live yet. So currently, once you have enough material and you want to print your book, you let us know. We format it for you, and we
Oh,
make
I
your cover
love
for you.
that.
Yeah,
Make it super easy.
yeah,
Fabulous.
yeah.
Well, Richard, what else should we make sure we know about NARA before we end our time today?
I mean, there's so much. I'll just say, and I know you're on the same page, that the benefits to capturing your story are just sort of infinite. The Because first of all, there's the benefits to the person who's telling their story, and the benefits to the family who's receiving the story, because it's a gift.
Yes,
First of all, if you're willing, if you let your elderly loved one know that you're interested in their story and you really want it, that's going to make them feel wonderful. And for people who are not so mobile, maybe they're recovering from whatever it is, an injury, or they're just not very mobile because of their age, and there's not a whole lot going on. They look forward to certain activities, and the activity of being asked questions about their lives, and it is a beautiful gift to them, especially when life goes fast.
it
People
does.
the pace goes fast, and a lot of elderly adults are not quite at that pace, and they often feel sort of marginalized or just not in the center of things. So when they become the center of attention, I think it's a beautiful gift to them. And it's an opportunity to learn from them, their wisdom, their lessons learned all the years, family, what the values are, why they made certain decisions. And if you're going in to visit, you go into the assisted living home and you're visiting your loved one, or you're a caregiver, and sometimes, what are you doing? You're just kind of sitting around, maybe you're watching TV, maybe there's not a whole lot to talk about. This is a great thing to do.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I see that you have it geared towards seniors, but I really think anyone could benefit from this. I'm thinking in my head, I have 4 kids, and to more chronicle their upbringing and their childhood and be able to share stories of them when they were little. Like, what a cool thing to be able to share. So, if families want to join the NARRA Story group, how do they remind us how we get in touch with you and how people can start their own NARRA story?
Yes, so you can go to the website, narrastory.com, two R's, NARRA, story.com, and narra is short for like narrative and narrator. You go there, quickly create your free profile, and then you can start exploring and telling stories to narra. If you want to reach me, and I'm always available, and I'm very happy to for anyone who signs up, if they want to talk with me for 15 or 20 minutes to kind of tell me their story, I can help them plan it and sort of conceive of it as a book project. Any idea that you have, any concept that you have, we can turn it into something, and I'll help you plan it and, kind of create the chapters and just, yeah, see it that way in a way that makes sense. So you can reach me at richard@narrastory.com, and that's that's kind of the story there.
Well, thank you because, this is such a great gift, like you were mentioning, not only for the person who's getting to tell the stories, but for the families that'll be receiving it. And for all of our listeners, keep in mind there's no reason to wait. The right time is now to capture those stories so they don't become lost. Richard, it was such a pleasure to get to chat with you today. And thank you for sharing NARA's story. And for all of my viewers and subscribers, please like, share, ask questions. Richard's information is going to be in the comment section below, and we appreciate you spending some time with us. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.